Chapter 2. The orders, when they came, were far from satisfying. The Rangers had been expecting an order to leave the children and return to their usual duties, but instead, they were instructed to move the children to the Rangers' base of operations, Weeping Tree Outpost, and await further orders there. They were pleased to be leaving this temporary camp and looking forward to refreshing their supplies at the outpost, but most were disgruntled about having the burden of young children, and human children at that, slowing them down.
It took over a month to reach the outpost, traveling northwest through the forest. The boys were quiet as they moved farther and farther from human settlements and from the life they had known. The days were long, and the nights less than comfortable as they made quick, rough camps to allow the children to rest. The youngest boys needed to stop far more often than the Rangers would have liked, but Alayna was insistent that the children's needs be met. When they finally arrived, Donovan and the others were taken by surprise. They had been walking straight toward the outpost all day, but somehow hadn't seen it until they were almost at the gates. The encampment was well camouflaged in the dense forest and surrounded on three sides by high wooden walls. Guards opened the gates for them, and Alayna led them past storage buildings and training yards where elves were practicing with bows and arrows to a large building at the center of the camp. Elves stopped their activities to stare at the strange procession as they made their way to the large building, and the boys huddled nervously, staying as close to Alayna as they could. They stopped outside the building, and Alayna turned to them with a smile.
"This is the officers' quarters, and this is where you will stay until we have word from High Lord Aden. I know you will quickly learn the ways of the elves and show respect to those who are providing for you during your stay. I will help you, of course, and you will help each other."
She then addressed the Rangers.
"I thank you, my friends, for your assistance with this most unusual situation. I will require only a few of you to remain to help with the daily care of our charges. The rest will be free to return to your usual duties until we hear from the High Lord. For tonight, though, I order you to rest, relax, and enjoy your first day back at the outpost."
A small cheer arose from the group of Rangers, and they had soon dispersed, more than happy to follow those orders. Alayna soon had the boys fed and settled, and when, at last, she retired to her own quarters, she was deeply grateful for her bunk and the small moments of privacy that she hadn't enjoyed for quite some time.
Tilda. 3 months later, Alayna watched as the gates to the outpost were swung open to allow a large procession through. She was surprised to see the High Lord's standard flying above the heads of the guards. It could only mean that Lord Aden was amongst them, which would be a rare event indeed. As she made her way toward the procession, she saw the central guards part, and Lord Aden step forward, demanding to speak with the commander. Alayna walked up to him, gave the traditional salute, and asked,
"How may I serve you, High Lord?"
Lord Aden studied her coldly for a long moment before speaking.
"You are the commander of the Wood Elven Rangers?"
he finally asked.
"Yes, my lord,"
she replied.
"I am Alayna, of the House of Durandal."
"I wish to speak with you in private,"
he said, and his tone made it clear that this was an order and not a polite request. Alayna led the way to her command office and invited Lord Aden inside.
"We are not to be disturbed for any reason,"
she instructed the guards. There was a tense silence for a moment as Alayna waited to see if Lord Aden would speak first. He did not, but stood staring at her as if she were something most unpleasant. Finally, she offered,
"Would you like any refreshments, my lord?"
"I highly doubt that you would have anything to my liking out here in this godforsaken wilderness,"
he replied. Alayna took a deep breath and asked,
"Well, my lord, may I be so bold as to ask why you have made the journey so far from the capital?"
The High Lord's eyes narrowed with anger as he answered,
"It was not my wish to come this far out. But you have put me in a very difficult situation, and since you do not seem capable of solving this problem in an appropriate manner, as I was hoping you would, my personal attention is now required. Where are these human children that you have allowed to live amongst us all these past months?"
"Some are currently in the barracks, sir, and a few are playing in the woods nearby. Some are fishing at the pond, and—"
"Yes, I'm sure they're roaming all over the place as animals tend to do,"
spat the High Lord in a scathing tone.
Please explain to me why you did not simply leave these children where you found them, or disposed of them in the first place, as was your duty. It was not your responsibility to see to their care or their needs. You have created an enormous problem.
High Lord, with all due respect, sir, if I had left them there, they would have died.
Human children are not our responsibility or our concern,
growled Lord Aden.
You don't take baby animals home with you after killing their mother, do you?
We did not kill their mothers, sir,
explained Alayna, barely concealing her impatience.
They were murdered, and the children were in great distress.
You will return these children to their village and leave them there. This cannot be recorded, which is why I speak to you in private, Commander, but this is a direct order and you will obey it. I will not spend viable elven resources on such useless life forms. It was a mistake for you to assist them in the first place. For all we know, they could be spies sent by our enemies.
These children are not spies, my lord. They are innocent victims of a horrible massacre. If we take them back and just leave them to their fate, we will be sentencing them to die a slow and painful death.
That is not our concern. If you had done your duty and killed them when you first found them trespassing, this wouldn't be a problem now, would it? Besides, for everyone that dies, 100 more will take their place. The human population grows ever stronger.
Alayna was not ready to give up. In a determined voice, she said,
Sir, if I may offer an alternative solution that does not involve the murder of innocents.
I don't care for your insolent tone, but make your suggestion.
allowed Lord Aden. Alayna spoke carefully and with absolute respect.
My lord, if your primary concern is the expense of raising these children to adulthood, then it might please you to know that they are about half grown already. As you likely know, humans reach maturity much faster than elves, in less than 20 years, in fact. And if you are correct in thinking that they may be spies, then would it not be to our benefit to keep them close at hand and out of contact of the humans? Would it not be better to train them and use them as scouts for our own purposes? We could set up an outpost even further south than any we've had so far.
Now you're asking me to raise and train these children,
shouted the High Lord, his face darkening with angry red splotches. Alayna went on quickly before he could become too infuriated to listen.
Yes. Once they're trained, they could prove very useful in areas where manpower is needed greatly, and if they die in battle, what's the difference? No one will miss them, and they would then be out of your hair.
Alayna paused, letting the idea sink in for a moment. She could see that he was uncertain, that he might go either way, and this was her only shot. She needed another angle, and quickly. Suddenly, she had an idea.
With all due respect, my lord, this may also be a chance for you to silence some of your more vocal critics who say you lack compassion. What could be more compassionate than showing mercy to children? It would be certain to put you in a favorable light in the eyes of the Wood Elven people.
Lord Aden smiled slightly and said,
You are clever. I like the way your mind works, but who would we get to train them? I don't want to spare precious elven resources on something I consider to be a pointless endeavor.
High Lord, if I may volunteer my services, I'm a skilled trainer in both archery and the elven sword tactics. I could teach them and form them into a fit command that any elven commander would be proud of.
I doubt that,
Lord Aden scoffed.
But I will grant your wish on the condition that you, and you alone, will perform this task. I will provide you with food, weapons and supplies for 30 days and no longer. You will be responsible for building the outpost, and after the 30 days are up, you will be responsible for providing their food and training. Are these terms acceptable to you?
Alayna saluted and replied,
Yes, my lord, I accept your terms most gratefully.
Lord Aden and his procession, eager to return to the capital, departed the very next day. Alayna spent most of that day composing a letter to her family, telling them that she would be away for a few years fulfilling a task for the High Lord. She could not offer them any more details than that, but she promised to return safely when the task was completed and told them she would carry them in her heart until she could see them all again. Although she was excited for the task ahead, she sealed the letter with a heavy heart.
She spent several hours writing an inventory of all the supplies they would need and then gave orders to several of her rangers to organize the items for their journey. That evening, she gathered the children together.
You must rest well tonight,
she told them.
Tomorrow we will travel south once more, much farther south than before. We will be setting up a new outpost there just for you.
Are you going to leave us there?
asked one boy, his voice high and anxious.
I am going to stay there with you.
Alayna explained and smiled as she watched relief wash over the boy's face.
There will be much work for us to do, but I will teach you how to hunt and build and provide for yourselves. And later, I will train you in the fighting arts.
The boys all began to speak at once, excited by the prospect of being taught the elven arts. Alayna raised her hand to quiet them and continued.
The High Lord has decided that he could use your services when you are grown and trained. You should be honored and strive to become great soldiers. He has given you a chance to survive and go on to great things. I will do all I can to help you reach this goal.
Most of the boys were thrilled at the prospect of becoming warriors, and good-natured arguments soon began breaking out about which boys would be the greatest warriors. Alayna laughed at their exuberance, knowing that reality would set in soon enough.
I am sure that all of you will be very proficient scouts at the very least,
she assured them.
But to become a warrior is not an easy path. You must learn patience, concentration, and diligence. This will not come overnight, and it will not be easy, but with my help, you will be as strong and skilled as you are able to be.
The boys were rounded up once more the next morning, and after a hearty breakfast, they split the load of goods amongst them and turned to the south. As Alayna said her goodbyes to the other elves, she was questioned over and over about the wisdom of this task. Were a bunch of human boys worth being exiled to the far south? Why was she offering years of her life for these worthless children? Many wondered if she had lost her senses. One look at the group of youngsters, though, with their tousled hair, dirty faces, and haunted eyes, and she knew she was not wasting her time. They needed her, they needed a chance, and she would give it to them.
Thank you very much for watching. If you like this video, please be sure to give it a thumbs up and subscribe and follow our channel. This is a Watson Lee Publishing production. Copyrighted, all rights reserved.